Welcome to week 6 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne, everybody. We're calling this week RomCom week.
I love a good love story.
This week is going to be all rom-com. Everything is going to be centered around rom-coms. I'm going to start it off this week. We each pick 3 movies that we want to talk about. I'm going to start with one of my favorites, but I feel like it's one from the 80s that because there were so many good rom-coms in the 80s, it doesn't get talked about as much. And it's Some Kind of Wonderful. It stars Eric Stoltz, Mary Stuart Masterson, Leah Thompson, Craig Schaefer, John Ashton, Elias Koteas from Ninja Turtles fame. He has a great part as the bully in it. It's a love story between, it's a 3-person dealio, like you've seen many times in rom-coms. I don't know if it's the first of its kind, but it's kind of the first one I remember of its kind. Stoltz wants to go on a date with the rich, not so rich girl, but she hangs out with all the rich kids. Leah Thompson, she's beautiful. His best friend is Watts, played by Mary Stuart Masterson. She's into him. It's very obvious to everybody watching the movie, except to Eric Stoltz, of course, who plays Keith. So it's a great kind of love triangle thing going on. Watts, you could tell there's a lot of moments where she's trying to hint to him that that she's in love with him, and it's just kind of this whole thing that goes back and forth until he finally realizes it. It's one of my favorite rom-coms because it feels real. It's not like the cheesy kind of romance of it. There's a reality to these characters. I think a lot of people in high school felt the way that these characters feel on screen, which is important to me when I'm trying to enjoy a movie like this. Watts is just a great character. I think there's always, back when you were younger, you think there's the guys that were in love with the girls that look beautiful, like Leah Thompson does in this movie, and she's very beautiful. And then there's the ones that were more in love with the Watts type character, who's very punkish. She's a drummer. She's very tomboyish. And I think that when younger, I kind of leaned more towards that, at least movie wise. And I think that just it helped me enjoy this movie a lot more than I think a lot of people did, because it doesn't seem to be as popular. But it is one of my favorites. Written by John Hughes, the great late John Hughes. Everybody, loves him for all these other movies he did. This is the one that I am a huge fan of. Directed by Howard Deutsch, who was married to Leah Thompson. So obviously something clicked on the set of this movie. I believe this is where they met.
I'm not familiar with this film at all.
No, okay.
Feel free to speak on it. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend that you watch it. I'm not sure if it's streaming anywhere right now. I have it if you want to borrow it sometime. I really recommend it. Like I said, the characters feel very real. Stoltz and Leah Thompson and Mary Stuart Masterson are fantastic. Elias Koteas, I talked about earlier, from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who played Casey Jones. He's great as the kind of punk rock bully of the group. Him and Eric Stoltz clash heads early, but then they become friends. So yeah, I really dug this movie, and I think everybody should see it, and that's why I'm talking about that one first, because I feel like, as you are a good example of, you haven't seen it, it really deserves to be seen.
Very nice, man. I'm definitely going to look into that, man. I will let you know if I need to borrow your copy.
Okay.
All right. Well, first on my rom-com list is the 2000 film Return to Me, directed by Bonnie Hunt, starring David Duchovny, Minnie Driver, Carol O'Connor, Robert Loggia. Bonnie Hunt makes an appearance, so does Jim Belushi and David Alan Grier. This is a story that takes place in Sweet Home, Chicago. David Duchovny stars as Bob Rulin, the owner of Rulin Construction. He is married to Elizabeth Rulin, played by Jolie Richardson. Early on in the movie, they get into a car accident where Elizabeth Rulin is killed. Thankfully, she turns out to be an organ donor, and this is where Minnie Driver's character comes into the situation. Her character is Grace Briggs. Grace Briggs is the recipient of Bob's dead wife's heart. And I say it like that because that's the actual line, and how it's delivered in the movie is very funny, very comical, but touching at the same time.
Yes.
The true magic of this movie really is Carol O'Connor, Robert Loggia, and the third gentleman's name is Eddie Jones. They are 3 older chaps that have a just witty banter and discussion. They run an Irish-Italian restaurant. And, you think about it, what? But watch the movie, it totally works.
Yes.
They talk a lot about the crooners, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, all those guys. Great music, great movie. It is a great movie, but yeah, it's fantastic. It's funny and it's sappy and it's sad. You go through the range of emotions in this film.
Yes, this is true.
David Alan Grier and Jim Belushi provide some witty, hilarious outtakes, or just moments that just bring everything together. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing a lot of justice to this movie, but if you have not seen the 2000 film Return to Me, please check it out. It was streaming on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure if it still is, but it's definitely worth your $3 to rent anywhere you can find it.
I concur. It's a good movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. The one thing that either I don't remember or I never knew, I didn't realize Bonnie Hunt directed it and wrote it as well, or at least wrote the story.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a good, solid movie, and I'm glad you brought up Carol O'Connor and Robert Loggia and Eddie Jones, because they are like kind of the heart of the story, and they're really funny too. And it's just great to have them in there. I remember being coming out of that movie being a huge fan of Carol O'Connor. We were a little young to kind of remember him from TV, but just out of that movie alone, I became a huge fan of his.
It actually looks like Return to Me was Carol O'Connor's last work. He left us June 21st, 2001.
Oh, okay.
A little bit year after the film came out.
Yes. So
a little bit more special.
Yes, exactly. All right, so moving right along, I'm going to go to my next one, which is another one that I like to try to watch once a year if I can. It's from 1985, and it's called Just One of the Guys. Just One of the Guys is directed by Lisa Gottlieb, written by Dennis Feldman, a few other people involved, Hollywood movies. Jeff Franklin as well, story by Dennis Feldman. And it stars Joyce Heiser as Terry, and it also has Clayton, I'm going to get his name here, Clayton Rohner plays Rick. It's basically, if you've seen She's the Man, you've seen Just One of the Guys. If Just One of the Guys is the inspiration for She's the Man, Terry, played by Joyce, decides that she's like having this like kind of crisis, so she pretends to be a man. She basically wants to see if people will notice her if she dresses like a guy. So she changes her whole persona. She becomes a guy, and it's just really funny. It's cheesy, funny, cute. It also has William Zabka as the jerky college boyfriend to her when she's not being a guy. Kind of his perfect role. And
sweep the leg, Johnny.
Yes. And it's really funny. If you haven't seen it, it's a very funny movie. Joyce Heiser is great in the lead role. Like I said, it follows the same beats as She's the Man. So if you've seen that, you've kind of seen it already, but this is where it began. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I don't know that it's on anything at the moment. It is really good though. It's always been one of my favorites. Like I said, it's not a serious, like 2 but 3 of my choices are more serious rom-coms. This one's a little more cheesy and goofy. I do recommend it though. Just One of the Guys. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Another film that I have not seen, so you are 2 for 2 in stumping me.
I honestly think I might go 3 for 3, so we'll see.
All 3 of mine come from the aughts, the 2000s. I wanted to stay away from the 80s just because it was too hard to choose from that era. And just when
there are a lot of good ones.
Yes. So my second rom-com is the 2004 film 50 First Dates, directed by Peter Siegel. He is also known for Grudge Match, The Naked Gun 33 to 3rd, and Get Smart, along with many, many other things. This movie stars Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore, Rob Schneider, Sean Astin, and we get an appearance by Maya Rudolph. Dan Aykroyd pops up, along with the usual Sandler gang, Blake Arnold, Alan Covert, Peter Dante, Jonathan Laugerin. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen it. You're all really familiar with Adam Sandler. Most people are, I should say. This was probably right in the middle of Sandler's main wave of popular films, would you say? Right around there, 90s to right around where it started to tail off, I would say.
Yeah, it was probably his last one that I think the collective audience was behind. That's not a serious movie. You know, his last comedy that everyone really kind of, I think if you mention this movie, people still really like it. Whereas there's a lot of other ones that don't get the same love as that one.
Right. Well, Adam Sandler plays Henry Roth, a gentleman living in Hawaii. In this particular, the film opens, he is playing a secret agent trying to break up with a girl. It's got a very funny montage about Henry Roth. And then a very interesting description of his anatomy, the character. Funny.
Penis jokes.
Yes, penis jokes. Drew Barrymore plays the lovely Lucy Whitmore. It turns out that she is a victim of a car crash.
Caused by a cow, I believe. If I'm correct, right?
I believe you. Yes, the cow, yes. She suffers short-term memory loss where it's kind of like a Groundhog Day where every day is the same.
It's actually a real illness as well. It's a rarity, but it is loosely based on someone who actually suffered the same problem. So it does come from reality, even though it sounds ridiculous when you talk about it, but it does happen to people.
Drew Barrymore has had this incident happen to her where she relives the same day over and over again, and her brother, played by Sean Astin, and her father, Blake Clark, basically restage the day for her every day. They have newspapers printed out. The day is actually her father's birthday, so they rewrap the same gift in the same wrapping paper. They just try to recreate the day as perfectly as they can for her, because on days when she finds out that this has happened to her, it's very traumatic. Adam Sandler falls in love with her and pursues her, and it's very funny, very romantic, very lovey-dovey thing. Adam Sandler, basically wins her heart through a series of events that only Adam Sandler can pull off in these types of movies and whatnot. The movie closes. They are on a boat in the Arctic, the Alaska.
Yeah, because he wanted to go on that big expedition that he was talking about earlier in the movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it turns out that they have a child. The way around this memory loss thing is he has made her a tape that she's supposed to watch every day when she wakes up.
Yep.
Just explains what happens, explains their relationship. Just very lovey-dovey, very, very romantic, like a romantic comedy.
Yes.
But, of course, in typical Adam Sandler comic relief, whatnot, Rob Schneider plays Ula, the half-blind Hawaiian Islander who, for the time, we all laughed at it. I mean, in today's age, I don't know if it would be considered insensitive.
Here's the one thing. Maybe as a caricature as well. However, I will say this about Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider, a lot of people don't know this, is actually Asian. And that is, and I know he's not Hawaiian, but that kind of, let's be honest, we cast a lot of Asians as Hawaiians, even though they're not Hawaiian. So that's one of the roles that I think he's okay with. There are some where he plays a Mexican, which is more recent and more questionable. This one I think is fine. I think people find him very funny in this movie. Schneider always comes along and either helps or hurts the movie, in my opinion. It depends on what Sandler movie he's coming into. But I really dug this movie too. I enjoyed all the performances in it. I think it is probably one of Sandler's better modern day comedies. And it was, I do believe, I'd have to go back and look, but I think this is what started him making all his movies in Hawaii or on tropical islands. Because this is the first one I can remember, and everybody liked it, so it's all of our faults. If we would have not liked it, he would have stopped probably. But now every movie the big joke with him is every movie he does has to go to an exotic place where it's just a vacation for him and his friends.
I got you.
Yeah, so no, this is definitely a good movie. If you could find it on Netflix or anywhere, check it out if you haven't seen it. Yeah, anything else you want to add about it, Wayne?
Just in an effort to always educate myself, I just looked up Rob Schneider's maternal grandmother was from the Philippines. So yes, he is Asian.
Yes, he's one of the few Eurasians that are famous. Like Keanu Reeves as well falls under that category. A lot of people don't know that though. So it's just because of the way, obviously the way they look very much like white guys. So sometimes it's hard to tell that, but people need to understand that not everybody that's every different race looks the same. That's kind of the whole point of accepting everybody. All right. So,
because you brought up Keanu Reeves, remember Bill and Ted 3 is coming out. It's going to be awesome, whether you want it to be or not.
Bill and Ted 3, Face the Music. Everyone see it. That's our little interlude right there. So moving on, as I move on to my third one, I'm going to talk about a couple honorable mentions here. Ones that I enjoyed. The Holiday. Jack Black, Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jude Law. Really like that movie. One of my
Absolutely love that movie.
One of my favorites is Love Actually. We didn't talk about that one because everyone's seen Love Actually. Either you love it or you hate it. It's nothing else that we could say that's going to get you to go watch it.
Rick Grimes, pre-Walking Dead. Let's do it.
Yep. When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle. Also classics that I like a lot.
We're going to have a lot to talk about these in just a few minutes. Hang with us.
Yes, exactly. All right, so for my next one, for my first two, I went for the 80s. So my next one is going to be 2020. It just came out on Netflix earlier this year. It's called The Half of It. I posted about it when it came out. I love this movie. Okay, I'm going to talk. It's written and directed by Alice Wu. Stars Leah Lewis, Daniel Diemer, Alexis Lemire, a lot of unknowns for the most part. It's similar to something like Some Kind of Wonderful. I think that's why I like it so much. And again, it's another one that feels very real, and they kind of updated it for the times. So the premise is this guy, Paul, played by Daniel Diemer, wants this girl, Leah Lewis, who's very smart. Her name's Ellie Chu Ellie Chu in the movie. And she is intelligent. She likes poetry. She likes reading like important authors and books and stuff like that. So he's like, oh, she's really smart. And he's kind of dumb. So he wants her to help him write love letters to the girl. Now, normally this is the type of scenario where you would have the guy and the girl that is helping him would fall for him. But that's different. What's the scenario is the girl's falling for her. She starts to realize that who she is she's a lesbian, and she starts she likes this girl, and she's on the same wavelength as this girl, but she obviously doesn't know whether this girl is a lesbian or not. So She's kind of afraid to kind of come out and talk about it. Nobody else knows, including the main character, Paul. He doesn't know either, which leads to some drama later in the movie. But it's what I would call an indie rom-com, and these are very popular recently, I would say, and this one, it hit Netflix earlier this year. As soon as I watched it, I fell in love with it. Like it hit every note for me. The performances are wonderful. It's a modern day twist on this type of scenario.
The Cyrano de Bergerac effect.
Yes, and we never really got to see these movies for us growing up. And now that I'm glad that my niece and my son and Dawson, everyone's going to have these type of movies that are out there that they can discover that represent everybody. And
it's not just boy falls in love with girl anymore.
Exactly. And
nice
it's not
that everybody has a voice.
And it's just not your jock falls in love with the cheerleader. This is, your nerdy Asian girl ends up, falling in love with the girl that she finds attractive because she's smart, because she likes the same music she likes, because she's artistic. There's a lot of the boy it's more about being attracted to her. He likes that she's smart, but it's more of about appearance. So she has this, even though the girl, it comes to life that you're not really sure that she's ever going to feel the same way about her. She still has an appreciation for the Ellie character, which I think is something that's very cool, and it's awesome that it's represented in this movie. Yeah, so it's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's called The Half of It. Just a very good movie. I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's my rom-coms for the week.
All right, and rounding out my three, I went with the 2010 film Life as We Know It, directed by Greg Berlanti. Greg Berlanti's only directed a couple of films, but he's produced on quite a few of the big superhero films and TV shows. He was a producer on Arrow and The Flash. He's done some stuff with Batwoman. And he was a producer on the 2011 film Green Lantern, starring Ryan Reynolds. Life as We Know It stars Katherine Heigl, Josh Duhamel, Josh Lucas, Christina Hendricks, and Hayes MacArthur play the parents of Sophie, the little girl who is entrusted to Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel's characters when the parents are killed in an untimely car accident.
Can I just pause here for a second?
Yep.
2 of your movies have surrounded death, Wade. That's pretty disturbing. Continue.
Interesting. I did not catch that until you pointed that out. That's you know me, I'm a little twisted, I guess. Without death, is there really life?
Sorry, continue.
No, it's all good. I was hoping to think, oh wow, yeah,
Tragedy equals comedy, I guess.
The interesting thing is this movie starts off with Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel's characters being set up on a blind date, and they cannot stand each other. And of course, they are left as custodial guardians of Sophie, and they choose to give it a go and live in the couple's house, trying to co-parent this child. And hilarity ensues, and it's just an interesting story about what can happen when you are, just entrusted with something. You're best friends with someone, and they, unknowingly trust you enough with their child's life to name you as the guardian. And they're not prepared to be parents, but they figure out how to get it together. So, let's see, got a couple of featurettes. Melissa McCarthy plays a small part in this role as one of the concerned neighbors. Also, Will Sasso from Mad TV has a small role in this as well. He is another concerned parent, or neighbor, excuse me. Overall, this is a rom-com from the 2010s. It's just one of those films that hits on several different emotions. And as Kirky pointed out, with the films that I chose surrounding death, I think subconsciously I chose these because it hits the comedy for me. It hits the sadness for me. It gives me the warm fuzzies too. So I think that's why I really went with these. Well, are you familiar with this film?
I am. I do quietly like this movie. I don't think I've ever publicly talked about it, but here it is right now. I am a fan of Life as We Know It. I don't like most of Katherine Heigl's films, with the exception of Knocked Up, obviously. But this particular movie, it got to me. I don't know if you're right. It's just the emotion to it. The 2010 was when I became a parent. So, that very likely could have had something to do with me liking this movie. It just kind of came out at the right time for me. Yep. It is sad at the beginning, and it does get sad in certain parts. Just to explain, too, if anyone hasn't seen it, the reason they're left in charge is because the couple don't have any other siblings. They don't have any other parents. Their parents are passed away at this point. So they leave each of their best friends, who they tried to set up on a blind date, who are not compatible, are left in charge of their baby because they couldn't think of just a couple to be in charge. They both trusted Hayes MacArthur's character, trusted Josh Duhamel, and then Christina Hendricks' character trusted Katherine Heigl. So that was just kind of how it all happened. I don't know. I can't remember if they expected him to fall in love. I don't think so. It was just that they needed to raise the baby together. However, they did that. And it's a cute movie. There's lots of cute scenes with the kid running around. Fun movie. Definitely. It was just on Netflix a couple months ago, so it may still be there. Check it out. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. Heading out of this segment into the review of the week. We are tying in the review of the week again this week as we talk about the rom-com from 2019, Last Christmas, starring Emilia Clarke, written by Emma Thompson, directed by Paul Feig, who directed Bridesmaids and the Ghostbusters remake, and also stars Henry Goulding, who is from Crazy Rich Asians, another good rom-com. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. This one is about a girl who, they don't hint into what her issues are, but she's been ill, and then she's better. And when she came back, she kind of you can get the sense that she didn't know what to do with the rest of her life. So she's kind of, she apparently was a model employee. And then after that, after her surgery, that you'll find out later if you watch the movie, she isn't the same person. She wants to be a music star, but she thinks she's really good and doesn't take criticism well. And so then she meets this guy, played by Henry Goulding, who tries to like kind of get her just to be nice and like tries to understand her. She struggles with her family because of the illness, because her sister resents her. Her mother still wants to baby her, even though she's better now, and her father wants nothing to do with the family at this moment. So it's a rom-com, but also disguised as a dysfunctional family movie as well. Again, it kind of fits the theme of the stuff that we've been choosing today. We didn't go for a lot of your standard rom-coms. A lot of the stuff I feel that we picked has a lot of emotion in it. Even something like 50 First Dates, you're dealing with someone who's forgets that, every day basically for the rest of their life. That's pretty traumatic. So this movie has a lot of traumatic stuff in it. It's not hard to watch by any stretch, but it just has some, real life issues again that we all deal with. Emilia Clarke is wonderful here. I've seen
absolutely adorable.
She's so good here. I've seen some other movies with her since Game of Thrones. Haven't liked them as much. Not that she was bad. Haven't liked them as much. This one I liked. It was good. It does a good job of bringing you in. It definitely helps if you're a George Michael fan. It seems to be on a trend of movies lately, including Blinded by the Light and another, I forget what the Beatles one was called, but movies that are not about the bands or the artists, but are surrounded by their music. Last Christmas is a song that was written and performed by George Michael, and Emma Thompson wanted to make this movie surrounded by that song. So her and her husband wrote the story, she penned the screenplay.
And also plays the mother.
And she plays the mother, the Yugoslavian mother.
Yes, and it's interesting that you brought that up. There is some, I don't know if the word is racial undertones or cultural, but there's some little touches about how there's this one scene where she's on a train or a bus, and this guy confronts some people talking in Czechoslovakian.
Yeah,
or
Yugoslavian, whatever. Yeah.
Telling them go back to your country, speak English, and so there's just little undertones about how, hey, and with Emilia Clarke's family being of a Czechoslovakian, Yugoslavian background, that she comforts the couple, letting them know that this is your country and you belong here just like everybody else. Well, just little things like that, just little nuances that add to the story.
It's one of the things that keeps it topical, I think, for the time being. Anyway, it definitely they set it in 2017, so it kind of takes place during the whole Brexit thing over there, and I think that was kind of the intention, was like, let's make a cute little rom-com drama, but have it be topical to the day of what's happening. And Henry Goulding, though, does a really good job here as well. He hasn't been in many movies. I think he's been in 6. I've seen most of them already. He's really good here as Tom, and I think him and Emilia Clarke have a really good chemistry together.
Yes.
So that was fun to see.
Yeah. And Michelle Yeoh, who plays Santa.
Michelle Yeoh, yes. Yep.
Yeoh, excuse me. She is the boss. She plays Emilia Clarke's boss. And they work in a Christmas store, obviously, Last Christmas, playing into that whole theme.
Yes. And
obviously, without going into, this is still a reasonably new movie, so we're not going to talk about how it ends or anything, but, there's a very interesting twist that you may or may not have picked up on. I did not until the end because I was so enveloped with everything else going on, but that was a weird transition. But I'm all over the place today. But, yeah, Michelle Yeoh, I found her character very, very funny. Very, very satisfying, and I just love the relationship dynamic that is between Emilia Clarke and her character as well.
Yes, they do have a good relationship, and what I also liked about this movie too was there's those moments where the main character messes up, and you can just expect that you're fired, but they don't have those moments that usually pop up in these movies, and I like that when I see something different. Like they have the dramatic moments because the two sisters don't get along. And I think a lot of that plays out really well. There's definitely some, questionable things said by both of them, I think, which gets resolved to an extent. It's,
I like that it's not automatically, oh, I forgive you.
Yes.
Again, not giving that too much away. You got to see the movie to find out what we're really talking about. But, it's not just instant gratification. It's got forgiveness a lot of times has to be earned, and trust needs to be rebuilt.
Yes. In this, I will give a warning, because I know from when this movie came out, the twist ending either really made people angry or made people really like it. So I think me and Wayne are on, obviously, the like it or love it category. But you may watch it and you see the twist and you may go, oh my God, I can't, whatever. But open up to it, I think. I think if you have an open mind to it, you'll like this movie. It's very sweet. Again, George Michael is throughout the entire movie. I didn't know, one, that there were that many George Michael songs, because I've never really listened to George Michael, and that I knew more than I thought I did. So there are some good ones in there, some good musical transitions and stuff with his music. And yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, I think it's a real sweet movie. And I don't think anyone really will regret watching it. You may not like it or love it, but I don't think you'll regret it.
Not at all. Not at all.
If you want to check it out, it's on HBO Max or HBO if you have regular HBO. And honestly, I would rate it a 3 out of 5 for me. I think maybe, Wayne, you liked it maybe a little more than I did, but I still enjoyed it.
Yep. Probably 3.5 too. Maybe even if that was close to a 4. But
okay.
By no means is it a perfect movie. And if you really dissect it and want to break it down, you'll probably be able to find some stuff that doesn't work. But hey, don't look up too much into it. You love Christmas. You love stuff like this. You're going to really enjoy this film.
Yes, if you can avoid getting it spoiled, that's the best way to go into it. So again, check it out on HBO Max or HBO. Moving right along, we're going to get into Gone But Not Forgotten. We're going to have a tie-in to what we've been talking about, rom-coms. We're going to do Nora Ephron, who is probably the rom-com, between her and Nancy Meyers, they were the two rom-com queens. Unfortunately, we lost Nora Ephron in 2012. But before we get to her, this week we lost Olivia de Havilland, who was in Gone with the Wind, nominated for 5 Oscars, 2 wins. Oddly enough, we lost Alan Parker, who directed Mississippi Burning, was nominated for Mississippi Burning and Midnight Express. I mentioned saying it's odd because we talked about Mississippi Burning last week.
Yep.
Rest in peace to both of them. Malik B., the founding member of The Roots, he left like 4 years after they were founded, but rest in peace to him as well. I love The Roots. I'm a huge fan. And of course, last night, I think we lost a guy that we could talk about, Wilford Brimley. Brimley.
Blood sugar, you check it often.
Wilford Brimley passed away. The funniest thing about Wilford Brimley right now is all the posts. It's like Quaker Oats guy and diabetes guy pass away. He was in a lot of movies, people. He was in The Thing. He was in Cocoon. He's in Hard Target, which I completely forgot about until I watched it recently.
He was the manager in the Natural, Robert Redford baseball movie.
Yep. Great
role for him. Not a lot, but a lot of people forget that that was him.
Yeah, and I even forgot he was in The Thing until he passed. And someone posted the picture. I was like, oh yeah, because he didn't have his beard in it. So I was like, oh yeah, that was him. Rest in peace to everybody that we just mentioned. It's very sad. So we're getting into Nora Ephron now. She was one of the first that brought rom-coms, I think, to the mainstream. I think that made other people like critics and people like you and me, Wayne, like fans of them without having to feel like we were watching like a cheesy rom-com or something like that. I mean, When Harry Met Sally it's one of the most classic rom-coms of all time.
Yeah, listen to some of these films and screenplays that she has written. As you mentioned, When Harry Met Sally, My Blue Heaven, Sleepless in Seattle, Michael. That is the John Travolta as an angel film, yes. If you didn't know. You've got Mail, Julie and Julia.
You skipped over Bewitched.
I was getting to Bewitched.
Which is a rom-com.
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, for me, it was a forgettable one. So.
Yes, I agree. But, I think it's
nuts.
Huh?
Just keep going. I'm just still going through this list, and I see something else. I'm like, she wrote that too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that she had her hands in, and she directed a handful of them. Mixed Nuts is another one that I really liked. But yeah, she directed Sleepless in Seattle, and she directed You've Got Mail, which are obviously Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. People love both of them in rom-coms. So if you look at her movies and her resume, like, it's really not that long. You would expect someone who'd work in the business for it to be that long, but for her to leave an impression like she did on such what I would call a long short career, because she did it over a long period of time but didn't make a lot of content, she really left her mark. And just you could just name Sleepless in Seattle and When Harry Met Sally and just stop there. And those are two of the greatest rom-coms of all time. And that's why we didn't talk about them earlier, because we wanted to talk about them now. And everybody knows about those movies. Watch those movies. They're great. I just watched Sleepless in Seattle again with Rebecca the other day. Great movie. And just the mark that she left on rom-coms in general, on movie making in general, is pretty impressive. And I think I always talk about Netflix being the king of the new action flick. They're also the king of the new rom-com. If you've noticed, like, Last Christmas is one of the very rare ones that actually went to theaters. Most of them go to streaming these days, and most of them hit Netflix. There's a ton of them on Netflix. Whether they're good or not, it doesn't matter. If that's the kind of movie you like, Netflix is what has them. And I think for someone like her, I think she would really thrive in that market today. So it's kind of a shame we didn't get to see her, make any rom-com Netflix movies. I think probably she would have made some good ones.
Absolutely.
And remember, she wrote the Meg Ryan orgasm scene. So that, that alone...
I will have what she is having.
That alone is history right there. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you're one of those people that don't really watch rom-coms and you want to get into them, Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, those are some good ones to get into to get you started. And then you'll get on to some of the ones that we talked about as well.
And a special thanks for me, like I mentioned before, My Blue Heaven, Steve Martin, Rick Moranis, Joan Cusack. Just, my love of organized crime movies. This is definitely a comedic take on this. It's got a little romance in there too. Yes. But just the 1990 My Blue Heaven, fantastic movie.
Yes.
I did not know that she was responsible for this, so I am eternally grateful for that, as well as the other movies that we've listened to.
Yes. In that way, she's similar to someone like John Hughes. Like, when I was looking at John Hughes movies, he's another rom-com guy, but he's responsible for so many more movies than people realize. And she was that way too. Again, like I said, it wasn't as many as him. He wrote a lot more, but she is responsible for movies. Like, I just watched My Blue Heaven. I did not realize that she wrote it. So I've seen it before, obviously, but I rewatched it recently.
One quick question before we wrap up this segment here.
Sure.
Typically, we find out if a director has directed something or the actors who are in a particular movie. How often do you look up who has written the movie or what they're responsible for? It's not something I ever do. I just never really took that into consideration.
Yeah, I think it's something that I do more often than most people, I think.
Okay.
It's just something that, being a fan of film, I've always been a fan of the writers. So I've always been interested in who's written stuff. And I guess for me, it's always fun finding out that people that I didn't realize, something that I've watched probably like 10 times in My Blue Heaven, that she wrote it. Even to this day, like I said, I just watched it recently. It's cool finding out that she wrote it. Finding out that Bonnie Hunt wrote Return to Me. No idea. And I've seen that movie a couple times. Not a lot, but a couple times. So, yeah, I mean, it's something I'm always interested in because I like, the Oscars and stuff, so I'm always interested in who wrote what. A lot of times, especially these days, you're going to get the director is the writer. And when it's a big, when it's their big movie, you get to know your writers because they're an important part of the process. And in some cases, they are the most important part of the process because you get your plot, you get your dialogue, your characters, all from the screenwriter. And the director gets a lot of the credit, but the screenwriter is the one that kind of has to shape it behind the scenes. Now, depending on the movie, the screenwriters aren't always on set, so it depends on what kind of movie it is. But yeah, so I mean, she was, for this type of film, she was probably one of the best. Her and Nancy Meyers were the two I think that people kind of related with. Nancy Meyers still with us, still making movies. So, yeah, like I said, check them out.
Thank you for imparting your wisdom on that.
No problem. Anytime. I love to impart wisdom, something I'm very fond of. So rest in peace, Nora. It was great having you on when we did. I don't think maybe as many people appreciated her until she was gone. But again, she did some great things, and she'll always be remembered, I think, especially in this area of film. All right, so moving right along, we're going to go on to what we've watched and recommendation as we get close to wrapping up this week's show. I'm going to talk about a few movies I've seen. I'm going to mention the ones that kind of fall in the rom-com area first, and that is Banana Split and After Everything. They are what I would call, the first Banana Split is what I would call a friend-com, because it's got a lot of the same beats as a rom-com, but it's about two girls becoming best friends in a very funny, humorous way. It just hit Netflix. It's a movie I kind of had my eye on for a little bit. It was made in 2018. It came out this year in March, a limited release. It just hit Netflix. It's written by Hannah Marks, and she stars in it as well. She's kind of like, she's been an actress who's been around for a while, but as it comes to writing and directing, she is somewhat new to that. She's done some short films and stuff, but for feature length, she's written this movie, and then I'll talk about the other movie which she directed. Banana Split, though, out of the two that I'm going to talk about with her, is my favorite because it's very much like a Booksmart or even like a Superbad. It's two girls who are dating. One of them's dating the main male character, Dylan Sprouse. They break up. It goes through like a year of the romance, very montagey. And then it goes to when they were broken up, and this new girl's in town, and she's now dating him. And she's really upset. She's at a party. She wants to hate her. She wants to fight her. And they end up becoming friends, but privately, because they don't want him to know that they're friends. So they kind of have like this secret romance away from him. And obviously that leads to its own challenges, jealousy, and whatnot. It's really good. I highly recommend it. I really loved it when I was done with it. I thought it was fantastic. Next, after that, we have After Everything, which is Hannah Marks' directorial debut with her co-writer, Joey Power. That one it's more romance than rom-com, but it is some comedy to it as well. And it's basically about a guy who has cancer, who finds out he has cancer, and then falls in love. And so it's a very quick romance, and they get married, and they get married and they start having the same problems that everybody goes through in the beginning of a relationship. They just happen to do everything kind of backwards. So it's very emotional, and both actors do a very good job. It has Jeremy Allen White from Shameless, the TV show Shameless, and then Mika Monroe, who is an actress I love. She's mostly known to me for horror films, It Follows, and The Guest. She was also, unfortunately, in Independence Day Resurgence. She replaced Mae Whitman, which no one knows why, because Mae Whitman is still an actress, and she's still working today. All right, so last week I recommended Kristen Stewart movies. I don't know how people felt about that. Again, we talked about how people feel about Kristen Stewart. This week I watched Charlie's Angels, the reboot, remake. It fits in the same universe, so I guess it's a sequel, but it's also called Charlie's Angels. Directed by Elizabeth Banks, starring Kristen Stewart, along with two other actresses, Naomi Scott, and I'm drawing a blank on the other actress, but check her out. I thought it was fun. It's not a smart movie, I guess, but you're really watching it for the girls, and they do a great job together. Their chemistry is fantastic. Kristen Stewart is great because she's like the kind of fun, bubbly one of the group, which is not something you would necessarily expect from her, I think. So I think she really kind of holds the comedy together there. Elizabeth Banks is good as Bosley. They do, spoiler, they have, Bosley becomes like an agent name. So they have several Bosleys. Jaman Hansu's a Bosley. Patrick Stewart's a Bosley. Michael Strahan is a Bosley. So it's all these Bosleys are their rank is what they call it. That's what they call it. So, if you're into those kind of movies, check it out. It's got a lot of good action. It's a lot of fun. Then I watched We're the Millers, a movie that Wayne and I have talked about several times.
Yes.
I believe we mentioned it even in one of the podcasts already.
When we talked about Will Poulter and
yes.
Midsommar.
Yes, exactly. It stars Jason Sudeikis, Jennifer Aniston, Emma Roberts, and Will Poulter. It is basically about four strangers almost. I mean, they kind of know each other who have to pretend to be a family to smuggle drugs across the Mexican border. Ed Helms is in it. He plays the American drug dealer, and he's a shady piece of crap. which you'll find out if you watch the movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It was very popular when it came out. Rawson Marshall Thurber, the director of Dodgeball, also directed it. I watched Goon, Last of the Enforcers. I've seen Goon before. I saw it probably when it came out, so 2011, 2012. I liked it a lot. It was a surprise. I watched this one. I thought it was okay. Jay Baruchel,
it's a decent sequel.
Yeah,
but...
Jay Baruchel directs here. He does a good job. I feel like it's cool that it's a different story. So let me start that. Like, it's a different story, and that's cool. It's not a repeat. But I feel like they felt they had to make the characters dumber. And I feel like Sean William Scott and Jay Baruchel's characters are really stupid, as opposed to the first movie where they were mildly stupid. Alison Pill is still fantastic here. I think she's kind of the treasure of these films. The fact that I'm sure what she had to deal with on set was probably the same as what her character has to deal with in the movie. Bunch of knuckleheads. Decent movie. Check it out if you want. It's on Netflix. I recommend Goon, though, more than I recommend Goon the Enforcer, Last of the Enforcer. So, and then
you brought up Alison Pill. I'm going to cut you off like I normally do. I apologize again.
Sure.
Goon is a really good movie for her. She's done quite a few films that have been, just really solid performances. My favorite of her films, which she is in, is the 2008-2009 Dan in Real Life.
Yes. Good movie.
What's his name? Steve Carell. It stars as the widower, whatnot, and probably one of the most iconic scenes in there. I don't want to go into a basic film review about this, but it's a fantastic movie. Alison Pill plays Steve Carell's oldest daughter. They lose their mother, so he's trying to keep it together and whatnot. Fantastic film, fantastic performance. You can even tolerate Dane Cook in this film.
You can, yeah. He's tolerable in that one. I also watched a movie called Hunter's Prayer with Sam Worthington. It's on Netflix. It's one of those like basic action movies that's being made today where you take a guy who was either famous before or is still kind of famous and you throw him in an action movie where nobody else is in it but him. It's decent. It's one of the more decent ones of that genre of action films. It does have Martin Compston in it, who is the main star of a TV series I've raved about online called Line of Duty. So check that out if you can. But he's in this as well. He does a good job. Jonathan Mostow is a director I know. He's okay. He does a good job with it. It's not something you're going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe you told me to watch a movie. It was amazing. It'll pass the time. It's entertaining. Worthington does a good job. But another one I want to talk about is it'll be the last one I talk about. Well, I'm in the middle of watching Ozark, so if you haven't seen that, I do recommend it. I binged through the first season pretty quickly. I'm on season 2 right now. Good show. But the next movie I wanted to talk about is The Hater. It's on Netflix. It's Polish, directed by Jan Komasa. I'm not going to try to pronounce the main actor's first name. Tomas is his name in the movie, so we'll go with that. Tomas is a character who it's basically the way I would describe this movie is they did what the Joker tried to do, but correctly, and correctly for me. I know people like the Joker. Joaquin Phoenix was amazing, and it wasn't my cup of tea. This one, maybe because it wasn't, and I told my wife after I watched the Joker that if it wasn't called the Joker, I probably would have liked it more. This movie is not called the Joker. It's a guy who starts listening in on this family that he used to vacation in his hometown, and he starts like spying on them, and then he kind of becomes part of the family. Then he's not part of the family. He starts working for a spin company, a PR company that basically handles spin from both sides. So like if you have someone that you want to get taken down, they go to them. But that same person can also go to them and have them do shit to take you down. So he gets really good at it. And it's kind of like the incel movie. This guy who's lonely, can't get people to like him because he's kind of weird and strange, but he sets things in motion that he can't stop. And he's not a hero, which I've seen one review was like, oh, he's an anti-hero. I'm like, he's not a hero. He's a dangerous dude. He's one of these guys that it shows how dangerous you can be online with people not knowing who you are. And I think the actor does a great job of kind of portraying this cool dude like out in public, but then when he's behind closed doors, he's a raging lunatic. It's really good. I recommend it if you can get through subtitles. It's in Polish, but it's really good. The Hater, Netflix. Check it out. Wayne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I just want to, you compared it to the Joaquin Phoenix movie, The Joker. Now, for me, I want DC to just put the Joker character on hiatus for the next 10 years. I felt that this should have happened after The Dark Knight.
Yes.
Heath Ledger, because I'm sorry, nobody's going to be able to touch that role for me. Like,
yes,
Jared Leto, great method actor and whatnot, but didn't come close. I have not seen Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker, but again, I don't know. I think they're chasing after something that nobody's going to be able to reach for a long time. I just want that character to kind of be put on hiatus for a while.
I agree.
Just my little thing. So, as of stuff that I've watched, I am still making my way through Lucifer. I'm still watching The Big Bang Theory. Watching Ninja Turtles, the 2012 Nickelodeon version with Dawson. I was able to watch the 2014 film Jersey Boys, adapted from the hit Broadway musical directed by Clint Eastwood. It's a doo-wop film about Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. I love this music. I love the time period. Very interesting to find out behind-the-scenes stuff about what went on with the band, the band, and the people involved and whatnot. If you have not seen it, it's a great watch. If you love doo-wop and 1960s music, you're gonna just really, really enjoy this. It's been a pretty calm week for me viewing wise. That's really the only stuff that I saw. It's been a very busy week. Hopefully, I'll be able to get more viewing in this week coming up.
All right, great. I'll definitely have to check out Jersey Boys. I've yet to see it, so I've kind of been putting it off because musicals, as you know, aren't always my thing, but sometimes they are. So we'll
There's
see.
an interesting Joe Pesci tie-in, which
I heard about that. Yes, I did hear about that. All right, so on to the recommendations. This week I want to recommend some rom-coms that are on Netflix. We're going to start with two that Wayne and I talked about. Life as We Know It, still on Netflix. The half of it on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. There's also Set It Up with Zoe Deutsch and Lucy Liu, which is a good rom-com that I think people should watch. Zoe Deutsch is actually the daughter of Howard Deutsch and Leah Thompson, who directed Some Kind of Wonderful, and Leah Thompson starred in it. I also Always Be My Maybe, fantastic movie.
Yes, fantastic movie.
Ali Long, Randall Park, cameo by Keanu Reeves. Definitely check it out. Definitely Maybe with Ryan Reynolds. That's another one that I enjoyed. It is a drama, but it's good. This is the one I thought you were going to talk about this, so I watched this movie, Wayne. About Time. I finally watched About Time, and I liked it. Right? Yeah, it's good. It's another one that's like, it's aside from the time travel part, it's a real movie because it's about dealing with reality and dealing with the things that happen in your life. What I liked about the time travel part of it was that he didn't use it for the big things. He used it for those moments that we all wish we could use time travel for, which is when you say something stupid or something awkward and you feel like an idiot. He's like, hold on a second, I'll be right back. And he'd go find a closet and then go back and redo it and be more suave or smarter or whatever. Not like Margot Robbie, who's one of her early roles, when he tried to talk to her the two times and he's like, you know what, never mind. Let's just go.
You know what? It doesn't matter what I do. It's not going to work.
Exactly. Great movie. It's on Netflix. You should definitely check it out. The two Kissing Booth movies, if you're kind of in for like cheesy rom-coms similar to something like She's the Man or Just One of the Guys, like I mentioned earlier, definitely watch those. But yeah, those are just some rom-coms I would recommend. There's obviously a lot of good ones on Netflix. And all
Don't forget The Lovebirds, the first one we ever reviewed.
The Lovebirds, yes, that is also a rom-com, an R-rated rom-com. So that may be more up everybody's alley than some of the other stuff that we mentioned, which is more PG-13-ish. But yeah, definitely a good movie as well.
Yep. As far as rom-coms for me, there's one that I wanted to talk about, but it just wasn't high enough on my list. Must Love Dogs. John Cusack stars in this mid-2000s-ish. Centers around love and divorce and middle-aged couples finding romance. I don't remember a lot of it off the top of my head. This is also why I didn't talk about it. But
I've seen it a couple times. Rebecca likes that one a lot.
Another John Cusack one, also Serendipity.
Say Anything.
Oh my gosh, Say Anything.
Yeah,
yes.
Say Anything. One of my favorites. I didn't talk about it because everybody knows about it.
Get the trench coats and the boom boxes and the kickboxing lessons going.
Yes, exactly. One Crazy Summer was another one. Better Off Dead is kind of like a rom-com. It's very goofy. But John Cusack, that was something that he did for quite some time there, including into the 2000s with Must Love Dogs. So.
Yep. Diane Lane stars in that movie with him, so if you're a Diane Lane fan, there you go.
Or a Christopher Plummer fan. Plays her dad. He's fantastic.
Yes, he is endearing and charming in that movie.
Yes, he's really good. And the sisters are good, too. I forget all their names, but they're good as well. It's called Google. Look it up if you're interested. Yeah, so that's our show for this week. We thank everybody for listening. We do have an announcement. We actually know what we're going to talk about next week. So next week we're going to talk about Seth Rogen and review his new movie, An American Pickle, which will be on HBO Max on Thursday. So it'll be Seth Rogen week. We'll talk about our favorite Seth Rogen movies. I'm a huge fan. Wayne knows this. So I'm going to probably try to pick some that maybe people don't know about or don't talk about as much. But yeah, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. We look forward to keep doing this every week. Hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. If you want to be a guest, let us know. We're going to start doing guests soon.
Yes, we are.
It's just going to be a matter of when, and we will let people know when we have a guest on. So thank you for listening. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.